The worms!
The worms! The worms!
Crawl in!
The worms
Crawl out!
The worms play pinnacle.
On your snout.
They eat your eyes.
They eat your nose.
And they eat that jelly. Between your toes. Oh. Worms.
Welcome to Storytelling with Eth-Noh-Tec.
She is Nancy Wang.
And he is Robert Kikuchi-Yngojo. It's October. And of course that means Tales of Terror.
And for the Tales of Terror, for this evening, we are serving up 2 stories for your ghoulish pleasure.
And then afterwards, you must switch your YouTube to
Zoom for discussions. Not just about our tales.
No, also on what out of the ordinary.
What paranormal experiences you've had the pleasure
or the terror of having.
So you have nothing to fear.
No, you will find the courage to share those experiences with us all.
Courage! After all, we are believers, or
we wouldn't be here, right? No one will call you crazy. Oh, no.
No. We'll just
ooh and ah.
Ooh, arg. So now it is time for us to begin our stories. Snuggle in
and turn out the lights. Because tonight we have one of our most favorite storytellers and who is also a very dear friend, the incomparable Miss Laura Sims. Let the night begin.
Halloween, or All Hallows Eve, is the time when the boundaries between the invisible world and our apparently visible world spring open. Demons can slip through. Blessings can occur from ancestors and deities. It's a time to pay attention. My name is Laura Sims. I'm thrilled to be here with Eth-Noh-Tec, my friends and highly respected and beloved colleagues. And I'm going to tell you a very, very, very old story from Mesopotamia. A story that reaches us from the past for this time. It's about a poor man. His name was Abu Sultan. His family had once been wealthy, but lost everything. But Abu Sultan could never be satisfied with anything. He was consumed with regret, complaint, jealousy, anger, frustration that he was poor. Every day he went to the coffee house to sit with the other men, but all he did was complain and want. One day someone said, Abu Sultan, can you give up this misery? And he said, no, I would give anything to not be poor. A few days later, a stranger came into the coffee shop with beautiful silk robes embroidered in gold with beads of lapis lazuli, ordered all the food that Abu Sultan had always wanted but could never afford. Enraged, Abu Sultan said, what brings a man who could buy whatever he wants to our poor coffee shop? The man said, when I was a boy, I was poor. I come here to remember. Abu Sultan said, You are a fool. I would give anything to have your wealth. The man said, anything? Anything! And then the rich man told Abu Sultan about the cave of the Queen of the Jinns that was said to be in a remote part of the desert with unequaled treasure for that one who was brave enough to make the journey. Abu Sultan, of course, said he would do it. He was brave enough. Nothing in the world was greater than his desire for wealth and knowledge, which would give him power at last. So he followed behind the rich man. The rich man got on his horse. Abu Sultan climbed behind him. Off their road, they left the city of Basra. They passed villages. They passed fields and meadows, rivers, and came to a desert. It was a long ride over ceaseless sand until in the distance they saw a mountainous mound of sand, and on the top were 2 stone pillars, an ancient ruin. The rich man rode as fast as he could through the sand. Abu Sultan jumped off the back of the horse, lifted up the bottom of his robe. The rich man said to him, Abu Sultan, you go ahead and tell me everything that you see. Abu Sultan scurried up, and there between the 2 stones was a metal covering. It was covered with dust. And all of a sudden he thought about his wife and his child, his life. And he wanted to call to the rich man and say, well, maybe it's not such a good idea. But rich man and the horse disappeared before his eyes. And then a thought entered Abu Sultan's mind. I won't have to share what I find. And he lifted open the metal, and he looked down. Cold wind rushed up. There was an abyss of darkness, and he could barely make out the shape of stone steps covered in sand. And he brushed away the sand on the first step and started walking down into this chasm. And he saw in the distance something shiny. And when he arrived at the bottom of the steps, there was an iron door. And on it said, he who dares to enter will receive great wealth and powerful knowledge. So Abu Sultan pulled open the heavy iron door. His eyes were nearly blinded by the glow of gems and gold, all kinds of jewels and necklaces and coins and treasures. He went mad with delight. He began to put things in his pockets, in his shirt. He rolled up the bottom of his robe and stuffed it with necklaces and chains and he began to smell something, a stench. and his eyes accustomed now to the dark and the shine of the jewels, he saw that beneath all the gems were hundreds of skeletons, some with flesh still rotting and falling off the bones. Oh. He took whatever he had and thought he would get out as quickly as he could. When he heard a voice. Abu Sultan, if you desire the greatest treasure, come here. Seated on top of the mound of jewels and bones was a woman of such immense beauty. Abu Sultan could not help himself. He moved toward her. Abu Sultan, if you press your lips to mine, my treasure will be yours. He couldn't resist. What is one kiss? He pressed his lips against the queen of the jinns and was so filled with pleasure that he pushed his tongue through her teeth, and she grasped his tongue with hers. And at first, the intense feeling of passion was so exquisite that the queen of jinns kept pulling until she plucked his tongue from his throat at the roots and spit it. Then she grabbed Abu Sultan and pushed her tongue into his mouth. And before his eyes, he watched her melt into a hideous ooze that covered the jewels and the bones. The tongue spoke from Abu Sultan's throat. Now I am your master, and you will do all I say. The poor man raced out, went up the stone steps, threw down hard the metal cover, raced down the mountain of sand. He had no idea, but the tongue instructed him. And he found himself led to an oasis. He was overcome with thirst. He longed for the sweet moisture of fresh water. But when he leaned down to drink, he tasted nothing. He stood up. There was a tray of food. Everything he had ever wanted. He filled himself. But he tasted nothing. And the tongue led him to the coffee shop. He thought at last, seeing his friends, they could save him. He suddenly was filled with love for them. But instead, the tongue revealed all who slept with whose wife, who stole, who lied, who cheated. The men began to fight amongst themselves, and then they lifted up Abu Sultan and threw him out of the coffee shop. Abu Sultan thought, the only comfort that I have ever had in my life was from my child and my wife. So he went home. His wife raced out the door, arms open. But the tongue repeated the words that every Arab man and woman knows is divorce. I divorce you, I divorce you, I divorce you. Abu Sultan's wife was so astonished and heartbroken, she backed away. when his little boy raced out the door. And the tongue instructed the little boy to climb on the edge of the well. Abu Sultan called out, startling the child. And the boy tumbled into the well to his death. Abu Sultan found his way back to the oasis, and there was a dervish. So he wrote in the sand, "Please help me, free me from a demon placed in my throat by the queen of jinns." Now the dervish was the kindest man and a man of magic. And he was able actually to pray and chant the words that flung the tongue out of Abu Sultan's mouth, but with such force that Abu Sultan fell forward after the tongue, and they both fell into a deep pool of water in the oasis, where there slithered a flesh-eating eel that swallowed the tongue and then ate away at the arms and legs of Abu Sultan. The dervish, seeing this, dove into the water and pulled up what remained of the poor man. And because of his incredible kindness and powers of healing, he brought Abu Sultan back to life. The poor man couldn't speak. He couldn't use his arms or his legs. He had no one. So the dervish placed him on the side of a road near the market and told the story. Well, many people came. They offered him water, food. Wealthy people, to gain good fortune in this life and the next, left jewels in his lap. And then the Sultan of Basra heard about this poor, strange man and his story. And he put a plaque, like a warning, above him that said, "Here sits a beggar who has ceaseless wealth and all the knowledge of the world, but cannot make use of it." That's the story of Abu Sultan. I thought, given our world today and all that's taking place, that we might listen before All Hallows Eve to a message in a hand that reaches us from the past, telling us to be satisfied with the true wealth of the world, love, and the knowledge that we are all connected. Thank you.
Thank you, Laura. Wow. A horrible way to learn the lesson of greed, dissatisfaction, and lack of gratitude. A lesson still needing to be learned by so many in our weary world.
No. Magnificent and mesmerizing as always.
Thank you, Laura. You know, it is exactly this greed and lack of gratitude that ghouls, ghosts, goblins, and jinns, and more, take advantage of when they come after us. Everywhere in the world. Yes, every culture in the world have
Ghouls, ghosts,
goblins,
and jinns. And so it just so happens, I have a few I'd like to share with you. One's from Asia. Darkness, demons, ghouls, and ghosts. Behold, enter if you dare. We welcome you with warning as you enter these portals of the paranormal, the cryptic caverns of undead corpses, creeping creatures of the morbid and the macabre. Here in the shadows of your listening lies the fearsome visages of the Asian world. Our first stop, the Philippines, land of thousands of islands. Each has its lurid lure of sordid spirits, like the Tikbalang, the ferocious horseman, Manananggal, the flesh-eating, flying half-body, Capre, the cigar-smoking, shape-shifting ogre in the balete trees, and the Tia Anak, the crybaby demon. Oh, don't be lured by the sweetness of a crying baby. You'll be devoured. And of course, the Aswang, the long-tongued, blood-sucking Filipino vampire. Our next adventure is China, where we introduce you to the chilling visions from this great land, where your eyes may deceive you. Are you seeing a beautiful maiden? The Hua Pi Gui? A nine-headed bird? Jiu Tao Niao? Did that Mandarin scholar just jump over that wall to greet us? Jiangxi. Don't lose your head over these ponderings unless the headless spirit, the Lo Tao Shi, joins you. She might take a liking to you and think you're the cat's meow. Or perhaps a Mao Gui, a ghost cat. Now we journey to the land of the rising sun, Japan. But when that sun sets and darkness prevails, beware. You may find yourself amongst an audience of the yokai, the supernatural beings. One might vanish right before your eyes, the Nurikabe, an invisible wall spirit. Or suddenly shapeshift into a personality altogether. Keep an eye on those nine tails slipping out from under that gown. The Kitsune, a shape-shifting fox spirit, will trick you. Now another might loom up from behind you with a larger-than-life personality, the Gasha Tokuro, a giant skeleton so frightening you may want to chill out by the river. But don't get too close to the water. That's where the giant demon spider lives, the Usha Oni. If so, make a dash and escape into the woods. There you'll only have to contend with the pine tree goblins, the Tengu. Oh, they are neither good nor bad. That all depends on what kind of mood they're in, so be nice. They might disappear on you, or become invisible with their magic cape. Ready for more horror? Then Indonesia might tickle your fancy. Onward we go to this island nation where we encounter not just blood-curdling, heart-stopping, but fearful, frightful, fierce creatures of the night. So stay alert, be aware, and be brave. There's plenty to lose your head over, especially if you've got the guts. And if you don't, this creature, the Leyak, the flying head and entrails, might offer you both heads and entrails. Indonesian spookies are drop-dead scary, though this one, though dead, does not want to drop, though he's dressed for the occasion. A proper burial, it seems he just doesn't want to take death lying down. The pocong, the shrouded burial ghoul. Certainly, if you're attending a funeral in many Asian cultures, you don't come wearing traditional Western black clothes, but instead ceremonial white. So let this lady in white, the Kuntilanak, the lady in white, take your hand. But be warned, she might not let go. The next citizen of the shadows is also a shapeshifter, oftentimes very beautiful. In fact, she will truly capture your heart, literally, and eat it too. The Punte Anak shapeshifter. Next we travel to Cambodia, and again this flying head and entrails, decapitated and disemboweled demon is so popular throughout many Southeast Asian cultures, and here in Cambodia, you go to the movies and see this Arp, the flying head and entrails. The Arp, well, definitely if you're sitting in a dark theater, be sure you know who you're sitting next to at the big screen. Or shall we say, the big scream. Fierce, ferocious, faintly and feminine, we travel to Korea and India. Now in Korea, a ferocious forest goblin, the Dokkaebi goblin, his mighty battle axe, or his club, the Bangmangi, is a magic club that, like a wand, can conjure objects and riches. Now some say he can be mild or mean, depending on his mood. He might appear large or small, lovely or ugly, but he definitely can cast a spell. And Dokkaebis are totally unpredictable. Now next to him we see the Gwinsi, again the theme of the lady in white. Beautiful in the mirror, but in reality, watch out for a surprise. In the vast country of India, it offers innumerable visions of demons, ghouls, and goblins, too many here to describe, though the category of Rakshasa, the very mention of which can strike fear into the hearts of mortals. Definitely you would not want to cross paths with this warrior Rakshasa, for he is well armed. In fact, all 8 of his arms wields a deadly weapon. And no trip into the nightmare would be complete without mentioning the Yeti, the mysterious monster of the mountainous snow country in the Himalayas. Are they long-lost race of ape-like giants? Or just a figure of imagination from lost mountain climbers afflicted by the illusions of snow blindness? Well, if you're trekking through the high country and you hear a roar from above, it might not be an avalanche at all. Forget your adventure and make your way down the mountainside. The Yeti might be following you. Well, now our trek into the treacherous lands of your mind and Asian lore must come to an end. Hopefully your trembling heart subsides after you check the window latches, set the alarm, and lock all your doors. Not that that would matter anyway, for fear can slip through the tiniest crack of your mind. Good luck. The night is long, and as they say, life's too short. Well, let's hope yours lasts a little longer. Thanks for meeting our fiendish friends of the darkest demons, ghouls, and ghosts of the Asian world.
So beware. These Asian ghouls, goblins, and more don't just come out on October 31st.
No.
No.
Sometimes you don't even know when someone you know
Or think you know.
is actually one of those ghouls,
goblins,
ghosts,
ghosts,
or
jinns, and yet maybe another kind, as in our story.
The Firehead, from the ethnic peoples of Yunnan Province, China.
Shishwangbana, the living land. Shishwangbana, Nanzangbu. Loved the living land. All her life, she tended the gardens of her parents' small farm, loving to let the rich soil sift through her strong hands.
To watch the leaves of plants grow bigger and greener.
To dip her feet in the creek behind their farm, and best of all, to harvest the abundance of their labor and love of land.
Each night, her tired body from the good day's work would lie down in the bed, hoping for a lovely dream.
And now her dream was about to come true.
Nangzambu closed her eyes this last night of her childhood home and began to dream.
Shishwangbana, the living land.
Shishwangbana. Nangzambu bolted from her pillow. She sat up and looked around.
Why? Why would she have such a horrible dream?
Why would visions of dripping blood and poison-stained gowns visit her in her sleep?
Nanjangbu shook off the horror of her nightmare and stepped out of her bed.
She willed herself to let her excitement rise on this new day that was going to be the beginning of a wonderful life. After all, it was the morning of the royal escort.
Nanjangbu was going to be taken over the mountains to a faraway palace in the next kingdom to be wed.
Every girl dreamt about becoming one of the many wives of this king.
And now her dream had come true.
She had been chosen for her grace and her smile, and winning the favor of the royal kingdom's search for His Majesty's seventh wife. Nanjangbu rushed to the doorway. She could hear the trotting of hooves of what must be the horses drawing the wedding carriage closer and closer.
But when the royal carriage arrived, she felt darkness pass over her.
She quickly shook it off. Perhaps it's an omen, she thought.
And that nightmare? No, it had to be about leaving her parents, she thought.
So with a sigh and a shiver, she bid farewell to her parents and mounted the carriage and sat, clutching her bags.
Now, at the edge of the rice field, she leaned out of the carriage window. See you at the ceremony, right?
But the royal guard had blocked her view, and the carriage rolled away so quickly, she did not get her answer.
Soon the farm she knew and the verdant land she loved vanished in the shadows of the jungle mountain road.
She would miss her home, the people she grew up with, and
Shishwangbana, the living land, so lush, so healing, so green.
The journey to the palace took many hours upon hours. And to while away the time, she amused herself with fantasies of a royal life.
Surely the king is quite handsome and warm, kind and generous. His palace must be magnificent and the land even more lush than my own.
Soon the visions of a new, beautiful life and the memory of her mother's songs and the clattering of the wheels lulled her to sleep.
Now the carriage was approaching the final hour of travel.
Nanjangbu awake. She was awoken with excitement, and she peeked through the drape of the cloth to see the kingdom's majestic landscape. But instead,
this must be a mistake, a wrong turn.
She saw mile upon mile of forest slashed to the ground, leaving the land barren and ravaged.
She saw men dragging and stacking slaughtered timbers.
She saw entire mountains leveled and gouged with mines.
Riverbeds coughed with silt and pollution, dry and barren.
The air had a putrid odor, sour and dense.
A patchwork of rotting fish and rotting animals laid over the land.
The many festering sores of a wounded land.
What kingdom is this?
When they entered the gates of the city, things were worse. The people slaved harshly under the crack of a soldier's whip.
Children scavenged amidst smoldering trash.
And the soldiers prodded and pushed elders along the streets.
Where have you taken me? We must be in the wrong kingdom.
But Nanjangbu was ushered out of the carriage and brought to the royal chamber, frantic and incensed.
Oh, what kind of king would allow this? Are the 6 wise aware of these atrocities?
Like Nanjangbu, the 6 other royal wives were also young ladies chosen from the countryside. They also dreamt of being in a wonderful life. As Nanjangbu entered the wives' chamber, instead she found it was no lightness or gaiety.
It was dark and heavy.
Overwhelmed with sadness.
Instead of beautiful young ladies from the countryside,
she met 6 soul-broken women cowering in the shadowy corners of their beds.
You should not have come.
The inner chamber door opened, and then a savage voice growled, "Number 1!"
And one of the wives stood, almost in a trance, and walked into the king's inner chamber.
Night after night, it was the same. One wife after another was called only by number.
Each night, the walls groaned with sobs, then shrieks.
The next morning, a wife would emerge from that darkened door and stagger to her bed and collapse.
Each night, Nang Zangbu listened to the horror of their tales. He is not human. They say he descended from an evil storm cloud. He cannot be slain. No arrow, no sword can harm this evil tyrant. He is a demon king.
Nang Zangbu cowered with the other wives.
Already she could see that they had all lost any hope of their lives being different than nights of horror, days of restless sleep.
For 6 nights, the pain of their stories fueled Nang Zangbu's contempt for this demon king and burned into her sleep.
Night after night she dreamt of poison rivers running dry and smoldering skies where no sun could be seen or felt.
Night after night she jolted awake, gasping for air.
Each night she awoke in time to see the shadow of a wife entering the demon's chamber.
Number 6.
Then it was the 7th night. She sat up in a cold, clammy sweat. The room was silent. The 6 other wives were asleep in their beds. She knew she was next.
Nang Zangbu, my 7th wife, come to me.
Nang Zangbu stiffened. Still she rose up, and as she began to walk, her feet felt like granite boulders, each step growing heavier and heavier.
Now!
She forced herself into the torchlit room. A flickering demonic tongue motioned her to approach the throne.
Nang Zangbu, sit beside me. Let me look at you.
Nang Zangbu lowered her head and whispered to herself, I must survive. To soothe her fears, she began chanting, Shishwangbana, Shishwangbana. That sound was her only salvation throughout that night of his abuses. Shishwangbana, Shishwangbana. And in that night of horrors, she had survived. And she had plotted.
When Nang Zangbu returned to her bed, she summoned the other wives and asked,
Is there anything you know about the Demon King that will help to free us?
The wife scoffed with cynicism.
No, it is no use. There is nothing that could kill the Demon King.
But Nang Zangbu refused to believe this.
Still, she shared her plan with the wives and asked them to believe in their freedom, to trust her.
But the 6 slave wives merely sighed a long sigh of resignation and returned to their beds.
Please, I will do everything to free you.
The 6 wives, they turned and tried to give Nang Zangbu a smile, but their attempts withered into empty stares of hopelessness.
2 weeks passed, and on the 7th night of the 3rd week,
Number 7.
Once again, Nang Zangbu endured the Demon King's abuses, but with a changed attitude. No fear, no disgust, no moaning, no cries, just a calm. Shishangbana, the living land.
When the morning arrived, she feigned a smile and commanded herself to stroke his horns with false affection in silence.
Perhaps it was the silence behind her smile, the silent stroking of his horns, the calm, deep breaths that was so alluring to the Demon King.
And so, night after night, she alone was summoned. She had become his favorite wife.
Night after night, after the abuse, she filled it with pleasantries till it captured the black heart of her unsuspecting husband.
You are my only queen.
Oh, my powerful lord, I am honor to be your queen. You bring me such comfort. You are so strong. When I'm with you, I feel safe. Oh, please, you must live forever. No one could ever harm you. No arrow, no sword. Please tell me this is right.
Well, there is just one little thing.
Oh, no, one thing?
I will tell you. It's
Oh, my sweet husband,
secret.
you do love me. You trust me with your secret.
Lean into me, my darling.
Oh, no, impossible. No, it can't be. Oh, you poor dear.
Yes, a single strand of my own hair.
Imagine that a single strand of your own hair when...
Wrapped around 3 times around my neck.
How horrible, my king.
Oh, my head will be cut right off.
Oh, your highness, your highness. Oh, we must not think of such a horrible thing as your death. Let's celebrate life instead. Your life. With more wine, my lord.
And so Nangzongbu poured.
And the Demon King chugged.
And she poured more.
And he chugged more.
And more.
And more.
And more.
And more until his huge head, dizzy from gorging and guzzling, slumped onto his large pillow. His chest heaved up and down like the swells of a dark, stormy sea. Nanjangbu cast a long, careful gaze at the demon's closed eyes, his chest rising and falling rhythmically. Ah, it is time. Ah, there. That's the one. And now, one quick pluck, and I wanged it once around his scaly neck for the plunder of the land, twice for the suffering of the people, thrice for the women he abused.
What's this?
And with the slightest of tugs,
No,
his huge head tumbled off his body and landed onto the palace floor. Shishong Bana! The Demon King is dead!
Nangzongbu ran to the 6 other slave wives.
Shishong Bana! The Demon King is dead! We are free!
Hey! And now the 7 royal wives approached that demon's head for assurance.
But as they approached, his head tipped, then tilted.
His black eyes bulged open. His gaping mouth drooled a vile saliva.
His grimace returned as his head began to feverishly rock. Back and forth, back and forth. His eyes shot open and his head burst into flames. No!
The roaring Firehead tumbled through the palace, igniting everything in its wake.
It rolled into the streets, determined to destroy everything it touched.
Capture it, shouted the guards.
Bury it, the wives cried out.
Someone must pick it up.
But where to put it? Where? Give it to me.
Queen Nangzongbu.
She lifted the head.
The crowd gasped.
Nangzangbu's hands burned in pain, but the flames stopped. Shishwang Bana!
The fire is out!
The fire is out!
Nangzongbu held up that Firehead, straining to keep it off the ground, straining and straining to keep it from reigniting, but her arms grew tired, straining and straining until it was just too much. Down fell the head to the ground, and once again, whoosh! It burst into flames. Nangzongbu picked it up again and held it high, and once again, the flames stopped. She held on and on and on as long as she could. On and on. The blood ran down her wrists. Poison stained her gown. Then, out of the circle of villagers, one of the demon's 6 wives stepped forward and held out her hands and relieved the blistering weight from the queen's burden.
And when that first wife could no longer bear it, another wife came to her relief.
then a third,
and fourth.
and they followed one by one till each of the 7 wives took their turn.
The head was passed from one pair of suffering hands to another.
7 wives times 7 cycles, round and round.
And when the 7th circle was completed,
The glaring eyes of that demon's head flickered and closed
for
for the last time.
Zhang Nanzangbu raised that dead firehead up, and together all 7 wives smashed it to the ground.
They shattered into 1,000
It
pieces.
crumbled into a pile of ash.
The earth opened up, and the demon ash was swallowed. Soldiers awoke from an evil spell, and they shook their heads and dropped their whips.
Farmers too awoke and shook their heads and found their land full of produce again.
The children and their mothers, they ran towards the abundance of the land.
Tree stumps began to reach for the sky with their new branches.
And the mountaintops, once again, renewed with green life.
And the rivers began to flow. Shishwangbana.
7 women lifted up their wounded hands.
Together they ran into the river, taking turns, rinsing the bloody filth from each other,
Rinsing away their sufferings,
splashing and healing themselves in the clean waters of
the living land. All the villagers rejoiced and ran into the river to join the wives in the healing waters.
The splashing and the laughter rang throughout the kingdom, loud and luscious, for a long time.
Free!
They were all free.
Now, if you ever go to China in the month of April, you can see the ethnic people of Yunnan Province celebrate this victory over evil every year in a water splashing festival.
They rejoiced by splashing buckets of water on each other to celebrate 7 badass women who saved their land. Shishwangbana, together forever
For the living land.
Thank you. Firehead. When we work together, it is more effective, especially against the demons in our lives.
Demons are everywhere. Demons are both near and far.
These demons who are destroying our planet, our world.
We can do it together. We must.
Yes.
Thank you.
And now, you are here. It is October 26th, and you have been listening to Storytelling with Eth-No-Tec on YouTube.
And now it's time to switch to Zoom. Ready? Everyone have the link?
Just in case, it is in the chat.
See you there for some interesting conversation with Laura Sims and us. Ooh.